On today's DNVR Broncos show, we're breaking down if the Broncos will keep Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, and Zach Wilson on the active roster today. And what's the waiting game going on with Bo Nix being named the starter? We're going to talk about it starting now. Oh, Bo, what is happening with the Denver Broncos starting quarterback, Henry? I thought it was going to be named Bo Nix the starter by now. Maybe it happens during this show, and I want to dive into that question. Plus, will Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham make the roster along with Bo Nix, and who will that impact on this Broncos team? Let's dive into all those questions on the DNVR Broncos podcast, where we are live from the Toyota Lounge inside the DNVR Bar. The Toyota Lounge is brought to you by your local Front Range Toyota stores. And we've got Henry Chisholm, we've got Zach Stevens, and we've got you here behind the camera, rocking and rolling with us today. Plus, a lot of people in the Toyota chat. We thank you, Edwin, James, Alex, T. Crane, John A. Bay, for tuning in with us today. Drop us with a thumbs up on when you tune in. Hit us with a follow. Turn on the subscribe so when Bo Nix is officially named the starter, we'll be going live for an emergency show as well. Henry, how you doing today?
I'm good. I've just been so flustered. There's so many things that need to be done, and now we've got like a new project that we're going to.
But during that tease,
yes,
I like that.
An accidental tease. But no, I just hopped on Game Time while you were doing like the cold open and stuff. Bought my tickets to the Montana-Missouri State game next weekend.
Ooh,
yep, I'm really excited.
Where are you sitting?
126 row 6, which is going to mean something to about 15 of you. I can think of two maybe a third off the top of my head.
You think that'll mean something to someone? What
I mean, they'll know what it is. They'll be like, oh, right there.
Is that a good spot?
Well, so
I wouldn't know sections within Empower Field and Mile High, and I've been there 100 plus times.
The thing is, so we always I know because our tickets were in section 104.
Okay,
so I can kind of like imagine where everything else is. Like
fair.
You have the starting point, or
yeah. That's
I'm
fair.
in 375 for the Nuggets, so it's like you can think about where the rest is. You're always in the press box though,
right? Exactly.
So you don't. Yeah, the sections mean nothing. You don't have to buy tickets.
So shout out to the 15 people that went to Montana. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
that are tuning in. Okay, I'll take it.
Expensive.
I'll take it. Henry, today still might be the day the Broncos name Bo Nix the starting quarterback. Ton of people in the comment section are saying, we need the announcement today. It's time to Bo leave. Sean Payton, why aren't you naming a starting quarterback? Henry, when do you think this announcement happens?
Oh, I think it'll be today. I think it'll be because if it's not today, I think it's next week. You know, because I guess we don't know exactly how this is going to shake out. We don't know how many starters will play. We'll at least get that information today. Sean will say like how many starters, unless he does something really crazy.
If he doesn't name Bo Nix the starting quarterback, I don't know he's going to do anything today.
The thing is, like, you have to. Like he said last Wednesday, like, yep, Bo Nix starting this week. Like, you go through the week knowing that that's the case. Like he said, it's the Bo Nix week, which means he gets Wednesday, Friday, and then Sunday. They'll have to. He'll at least know, and he will tell us, I think.
Well, Sean Payton doesn't like being told he has to do things.
True.
He really pushed back on that. No one told him he had to announce a starting quarterback after Sunday's game, but when the questions kept coming in, he made it very clear that he was the boss, that he was going to do things on his own time.
And he is the boss.
So maybe he's feeling, all of those things are true. He doesn't have to do jack blank, but he might just be pushing back against that. But you're right. if it's going to happen this week, today makes the most sense because not only like announcing it, but then you start your game plan for what you're going to do in the preseason, how you're going to run practice. And this probably won't impact practice until about Friday when they really start kind of game planning for their first or for their last preseason game. But Henry, I still think that this news will come today because I have been told behind the scenes that this was the week that they were going to announce Bo as a starter for pretty much all month. They were looking at this week to do it. And so if you're going to do it this week, right now, today makes the most sense to do it. And then also, on top of what Bo Nix has done, he's played and shown everything he's needed to prove to be the quarterback of this team. And plus, he was already in the leading spot to do that. And then after you go 8 for 9 for 80 yards, a touchdown, you lead your team on 2 scoring drives in 2 possessions. Henry, he easily could have played a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th possession out there on Sunday. But Sean said, I've seen enough in those 2 possessions, pulled him there. Like, what are we doing? Let's just do this. Let's get the obvious out of the way. Let's have him be the starter. Give him the team and the reins right now.
I mean, Jarrett Stidham only got the 2 drives the week before. And then Sean said he'd seen enough of Jarrett, too. But then what happened?
Or was he just anxious to see Bo? Because then we went and saw Bo go out and have 4 drives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it seems like Wednesday's been the day we at least get clarity for the weekend. And if we're getting clarity for the weekend, there's got to be... I guess, so if they say the starters aren't playing on Saturday, and I think that that's what both of us expect.
Sunday.
We don't see starters. Sunday, yes. It's college football season starting on Saturday.
Oh, let's go. Who's playing?
The one I'm excited for is Montana State and New Mexico.
Okay, who's everyone excited for?
Florida State, Georgia Tech, maybe.
Okay. Is that like an Ireland game or something?
It might be.
Haven't they been doing that on like week 0s?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to see Montana State go down there. They're 11-point favorites now at New Mexico. And I want to see them get their asses kicked.
Of course you do.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Will you tell Alex Singleton that?
We don't get to see him.
It's true.
That is one of the things on my list. Is I was curious what he thought about this game, but we aren't in the locker room until the end of the season. And I don't need to request an interview to ask that question. That'd be crazy. But yeah, I think like if the starters are sitting on Sunday, then one of the quarterbacks you would think would be sitting too. Otherwise, rotations get all weird. Maybe if you aren't naming a starting quarterback, you just have all the starters play. But even in that case, Sean would probably say today, like, Bo's going to be with the starters this week, or Jarrett's going to be with the starters this week. So I really think that maybe we don't get like the big news of who the starter is, but there should at least be some significant news about this weekend that really implies one way or the other.
Well, and don't we know who the starter is regardless? It's all just a formality now.
Oh, yeah. It probably isn't worth, like, it doesn't matter.
So what would you say, what odds would you put the Bo Nix is a week 1 starter?
I mean, it's just based on injuries.
Out of 100. Okay, no, he's healthy. No one gets
then
hurt.
It's 100.
So then, we don't even need to waste any more time on this. Bo Nix will be the starter. It's just a matter of time, and it's making me anxious. I've just, been afraid to leave my phone for 1 second, thinking news might break. So, okay, so Henry, when Bo Nix is announced the starter, the quarterback competition will not be over, because then that might start another quarterback competition for the backup spot. Now the number 2 spot might be open right now. What would you put the odds on Jarrett Stidham being the backup, and what would you put the odds on Zach Wilson being the backup?
Oh, see, it's tough because I don't know. I think that Jarrett Stidham is the heavy favorite if they keep 3 quarterbacks. The question is just whether they bother keeping 3 or if they just move on from Jarrett Stidham. And that's why the math gets kind of weird in your head. If they're on the roster, I mean, backup quarterback meaning, oh no, Bo got hurt, he can't go out to start the series. It's not a situation where you throw Zach Wilson in there. The man's just chaos. You need some steady hand, steady the ship, backup quarterback things. That's not Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson just more exciting for the long run, where if you said like, oh, things aren't going well with Bo, we'll knock on wood again, we got to throw somebody in for the rest of the season. Give Zach Wilson a shot. It's more exciting. So I'll say I'll say it's 80-20 Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson, just because I think it's that likely that they keep all three.
Exactly what I was going to go. I was going to go
Wow.
Jarrett Stidham at an 80%. Like you said, a big-time favorite. And now I know everyone that's tuning in has been able to watch the first preseason game and the second preseason game. They saw Zach Wilson absolutely ball out in the first preseason game. Did not ball out in the second preseason game. Still got in the end zone once. And they've seen Jarrett Stidham be steady, but nothing special. I mean, he had the interception that was tipped this past game. He did go 7 for 11. That's pretty steady. The first game, he went 4 of 7. Now, his team, I think, had 3 offensive penalties that weren't his fault in that first game, which moved the team out of scoring range, which really hurt him itself. But people have not been wowed by Jarrett Stidham. That first preseason game, people were wowed by Zach Wilson. So I think from a public standpoint, they would probably put the odds to favor Zach Wilson a lot more than we did. But the reason why Henry and I are putting it at 80% that it's Jarrett Stidham as the backup is because of what we've seen in practice and behind the scenes. And Henry, Jarrett Stidham, when it's mattered in important times of practice, Jarrett Stidham has always been the backup. He's always been the guy getting the number 2 reps when he's not getting the number 1 reps. And Zach Wilson has never once taken the backup reps in a meaningful time. So that's just why I think that nothing has indicated, and it would be kind of wild to go from Zach Wilson never being the backup to now Jarrett Stidham's off the roster and Zach Wilson's the backup.
Yeah. I think Zach Wilson definitely wowed in the first preseason game. He sucked in that second preseason game.
I don't think it was as bad as
he sucked.
the offense sucked around him too.
No, I mean that. Oh yeah, there was a lot of suck going around, but I mean he was the catalyst. I mean, there's a third down where he's got I think it's Brandon Johnson, and poor Brandon Johnson's running a drag route. Nobody near him. It's like I think it's a 3rd and 8, and he's just running just short of the sticks all the way across the field. He winds up just standing there at the end, being like this, like there's nobody anywhere near me. This is a free first down if you want it. And Zach Wilson, again, there was some pressure there. He wound up not getting the ball to him. You're just like, well, how did you not throw that ball? There's another drag route. This is from like the 7-yard line or something. Drag route.
A what route?
Drag.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, drag route.
You got really
Sorry,
dragged
I
the
couldn't
word out.
understand what you were saying.
But it's Michael Bandy coming across. This one's right to left. And again, Michael Bandy is just wide open. There's a lane to the end zone. It's a free touchdown right there if you want it. And Jarrett Stidham just missed him. Zach Wilson just missed him. Like, this one was the bad throw. And he got the touchdown the next play on, like, the screen to Tyler Beatty, so it didn't really hurt. But we got back to, like, real Zach Wilson. I don't even want to say real Zach Wilson. I think the combination of week 1 and week 2 is the real Zach Wilson, where you get like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And oh, no, that was not awesome. And so if he had repeated what he had done in the first game, I think that there'd be a really strong case for him to be the backup, but he did not.
Yeah, no, he certainly did not. So
and then the safety too. He could have gotten that ball away. There's a wide open running back.
Yeah, he could have, but also like out of nowhere, a defender got loose from the line of scrimmage and just attacked him.
Of those 3 plays, that's the one I worry the least about probably. But when you're just staring at a wide open running back, it's so easy just to throw the ball at his feet. And I think Daniel Jones had a similar play on Saturday where he actually did try to throw out of the safety, and I think that one was a pick 6. And so I wonder, and that's part of the reason I was like, you know what, don't mess around, take the safety, but also he's wide open, just throw the ball at his feet. I'm not too worried about that one, but you throw a safety into like the bad numbers and all of a sudden it's rough.
Well, then saying all of that, Henry, I'm curious if you think that the Broncos should keep all 3 of these guys or not. Let's dive into that question after I give a shout out to our friends over at Shady Rays. Henry, maybe Zach Wilson just needed some sunglasses, some Shady Rays, and then he would have been able to see Brandon Johnson and Michael Bandy on the field. Maybe it was just too bright out there, and if you need Shady Rays to go to the Broncos game this Sunday at 2 p.m., it's going to be bright. Sunglasses will be needed, or honestly, if you just live in Colorado or you ever experience sun then you need Shady Rays. And
So
our
true.
friends over at Shady Rays are going to hook you up with a 35% discount on top of their already very well-priced sunglasses. All of their glasses are polarized, and you can get sunglasses for all different types of activities, whether you want to look stylish, whether you're going to go play softball and you need some sporty glasses, whether you're hitting the golf course like Peyton Manning today, or whether you're going up to the hills to ski. They even have ski goggles. So if you want to get in on their hundreds of different pairs of sunglasses, you can check them out over at shadyrays.com, where over 300,000 people have given them 5-star reviews, including us. We love our Shady Rays over here. I got mine in the car for when we go out to Broncos practice right after this, because it's a need in Colorado. And use that code DNVR over at shadyrays.com to get 35% off any of their pairs of sunglasses. That's shadyrays.com, and use that code DNVR for 35% off.
And, you brought up, what if Zach Wilson just needed some Shady Rays? What if he'd had a Toyota?
Oh man, he would have just been steamrolling. He'd look like Jarrett Stidham out there.
You put him in a Tacoma back there, it's a touchdown every time.
It should
Nobody's
be.
stopping one of those things. Toyota's incredible for everything, not just for football. If you want to get up into the mountains, if you want to, really anywhere you want to drive. That's the thing about Toyota, is they'll get you just anywhere.
That's a good point. Yeah.
They've got all the off-road stuff, the on-road stuff, the return of the iconic 2024 Land Cruiser. They've got 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, the 4Runner, 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck. They've got SUVs that take command on the road and on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and the Grand Highlander. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota, the official automotive partner of the NFL, official vehicle of DNVR.
All right, Henry. Will Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham make the roster? Should the Broncos carry 2 quarterbacks? Those are 2 questions I want, or 3 quarterbacks. 3 quarterbacks. Those are the 2 questions I want you to answer.
Yeah. I don't
Yes
think
to
there's any.
both?
Yeah. I'd keep all 3. I think that it's. As excited as we've all been about this preseason and the training camp, it's still not the most talented team. And whoever you were probably going to keep with that roster spot, if you didn't give it to a quarterback, you can probably just get them on the practice squad anyway. Whereas with the quarterbacks, I'm not sure if that's true. I get that there's financial reasons to get rid of Jarrett Stidham. You save $5 million. I don't. In the grand scheme of things, that $5 million, there's a reason teams pay their backup quarterbacks. It's a nice insurance policy. If you think that the Broncos have any chance at being successful this year, keep Jarrett Stidham. And you can always get rid of him in the middle of the season. It's not like you have to do it now or never. If you get to week 10 and, you're 2-8, and you say, you know what, we want to save half of this money. We want to save the $2.5 million. You can make the move there. You can pull up some young guy from the practice squad. I just think that Sean Payton wants to try to win this year, and I think that's always the right thing to do. So if you have a guy who you trust to patch a game or 2 or a half or a quarter, whatever it may be, there's no reason to get rid of him. And I think that after the season, when they hit free agency, you could potentially get comp picks for him. Like if Jarrett Stidham gets the same contract, you're probably getting a 5th or 6th round pick, assuming you're not making too many moves that cancel that out. It's always a little bit complicated, but with 2 of them, I think it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Let me. You wanna keep talking for a second?
I'll keep talking.
I'll
You
be right
handle
back.
this. Yeah. I always love when his phone rings because there's only a few people who can actually get the phone to ring when we're in the middle of a show, which means it's something important. Let's see. The saving the money with Jarrett Stidham. Again, I see the appeal, but I also see the appeal of having a good backup quarterback, and I think Zach Wilson's more of a project. I think he showed that this week. Zach has to go around the other way. He can't cut off the camera. I'm curious. I see a lot of people really upset with those 2 in the chat. after last week, I thought the Broncos had 3 like roster-worthy quarterbacks. I just do you have any update?
I don't have any update.
Oh, no
right
good news.
now.
Oh.
I don't have an update. So just hang tight. But Henry, I the people are saying in the Toyota chat, well, you save $5 million by moving on from Jarrett Stidham. Why not do that?
Well, because you have enough money to get through the year. Like you have the 11th most cap space next offseason. You've got the 4th most cap space the year after and the year after that. Like I get the appeal of saving the money, but also it's going to really suck if you wind up in a situation where, you're 6-5, Bo has to leave the game in the third quarter. It's a tight game and Zach Wilson comes in and throws a pick. And I think that there's a reason you have a backup quarterback. I mean, you could say this about just about any position on the roster. Say like, oh, you could save the money. Yes, but he is a valuable player. And it's not – after last week, the Broncos had 3 good quarterbacks. They're worth holding on to that could potentially be in situations they could start. They're valuable pieces. You don't get rid of valuable players, and your quarterbacks are more valuable than the 53rd player on your roster. Right now, I know it's a low point, but we'll see what happens on Sunday.
With when it comes to these 2 quarterbacks, they're very, very different quarterbacks, Henry. Because if you want to win this year, Jarrett Stidham has to be your backup quarterback, doesn't he?
Yep.
And if Sean Payton says, I want to keep the best 53 players on the roster, he has shown for over 4 months now that he thinks at least the second best quarterback on the roster is Jarrett Stidham. Now, Bo Nix is the best, but he has shown with his actions that Jarrett Stidham is the second best quarterback on this roster. So it would make no sense at the most important position in sports for the Broncos to say, we're going to move on from our second best quarterback. Doesn't make any sense. However, it also doesn't make much sense to trade for Zach Wilson. I know the Broncos gave barely anything away when they traded for him. But when they traded for him, he's only been better since they traded for him. He's only shown that improvement. So why would you get rid of a guy who has only shown improvement from when you traded for him? And he does have a lot of talent. He's a former number 2 overall pick. He went out there a couple of weeks ago against the Colts and looked really good. And there's one other thing of why you would keep Zach Wilson. You hear? Let's dial up this clip from Sean Payton. Now, this was last week before the second preseason game. But Henry, in the Twitter chat, when you listen to this clip of Sean Payton talking to Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel, tell me if you think this is a guy that is about to move on from Zach Wilson. Let's hear it from Sean. Okay, so but first, let's just start there. This freaking Zach Wilson guy, I mean, not only does he like how he's playing, but you can tell he just loves him as a person, too.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, like, as he said, these last 2 weeks, incredible. This was also right before the preseason game where he was not incredible. So you have to remember that piece because it weighs into the equation. But, yeah, I mean, I was really fired up about Zach Wilson last week, too.
Yeah.
What is going on over there? You're busy.
I'm tripping out right now.
Oh, boy. What did you think of Zach Wilson last week?
In the first preseason game?
Yeah.
I thought he was great.
And then, like, the 2 weeks of practice. I mean, last week, the week before, the game in the middle.
So here's how it went for Zach Wilson. Here's Zach Wilson's progression here is... Were people not able to hear it? People weren't able to hear it. Okay, so you guys got to hear this. So listen to this video right now. Here's going to play it with sound this time so you can hear. He needs a minute to dial it up. That's why we have the Twitter chat. They can tell us what's going on, what's not going on. You got it? Okay, let's see. In the Twitter chat, let us know if you can hear this. In a quick minute. We're all over the place today. My goodness. That means news must be about to break.
What?
Oh, no, it's not playing?
Have they gotten any of the weird sounds you've played? They've got none of that because all of it, this last one was just somebody screaming. I don't know either. So what did Sean say? This freaking Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
The last week and a half, he's been, what did he say?
Amazing.
And I can't remember if there's something else that ends it by saying like these last 2 weeks, he said something about 2 weeks also. Can anybody hear this? What is this? They can't hear that? You can't just play people yelling. I mean, this one was in some echoey room. What are you watching over there?
Trying to play.
I don't know what's playing. I really don't.
Oh, they heard the weird sound this time. Okay. Okay. Well, let's give up on this.
It's a good clip, though, man.
Which one? The Sean Payton one or the
Both of them.
both? Okay.
Oh my god! Oh yeah, they did get the screaming
well,
one.
that's good.
The screaming one was not Sean
just
Payton.
us. No, that was not Sean Payton.
I mean, it almost was. If you thought that screaming was like a good screaming, that was Sean Payton screaming at much how he loved Zach Wilson. But Henry pretty much recapped it. But what's funny about that is Sean Payton goes, "This freaking Zach Wilson guy," and Chase Daniel immediately is like, "Oh my gosh, I'm awesome," and Danny Rossini's like, "Oh, awesome," and it's just like. Chase Daniels made it very clear, Henry, that the night before they recorded this interview with Sean, they sat in meetings with Sean Payton in the quarterback room. So they know exactly what's going on, and they know exactly how Sean feels. So I think right there, just that part of the clip says all you need to know about Zach Wilson and how the team feels about him. Now, there was one part of this clip that obviously no one heard, but also that, Henry, you left out. One of the things Sean says is, I told Zach, go out and have fun. It's my job to earn him.
Zach Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Wait, me?
yeah.
You thought Sean was talking about me?
Sure. Just making sure.
Maybe he was talking about me. I hope he's talking about me, because here's what he said. He said, I told Zach to go out and have fun. It's my job to make him millions, whether it's with us or for someone else. Could Sean be trying to build Zach Wilson up in front of the national media in order to trade him?
The thing is, he wouldn't make him millions yet. The millions would come after the season. Unless somebody's like, hey, you spent 4 months with Sean Payton. I mean, you know. I think that the real plan is you keep all three this year. You let probably Stidham walk after the year. You get the comp pick. You bring Zach Wilson back, and then Zach Wilson's your backup next year. And again, you hope Bo Nix plays every game and is awesome, but realistically, starting quarterbacks play 15 games. The backup plays about 2 games. So you get Zach Wilson in for those 2 games, and then he's your Matt Castle or Matt Flynn, who you then trade. I guess after the season wouldn't be able to trade him. You would let him sign, hopefully, a big contract that gets you a comp pick. So you have like this nice progression. Again, that's the value of having 3 valuable quarterbacks on the roster. Like they're the most valuable players on the team. You hold on to them, you can reap those benefits. And who knows? Maybe the Broncos. Again, there's a very, very slim chance, and it'd be a sad world if Bo Nix struggles. Zach Wilson gets in and he's good. Maybe he does make the millions in Denver. Hopefully that isn't what happens, but it's just nice to have valuable pieces around.
Isn't Zach Wilson the Bo Nix insurance long term, and Jarrett Stidham is the Bo Nix insurance for this year?
That's a good way to look at it.
Well, thank you. I finally made a good point that makes sense.
Let's see. 28 minutes in.
28 minutes
nice
in.
Job.
I like it. Thank you. So, Henry, I want to ask you a question, though. At what point would you trade Zach Wilson? What would you have to get in return to trade Zach Wilson before cut day, which is in 6 days? Because I think there's one big thing that Zach Wilson can still do in order to have some trade value and potentially get paid millions from someone else this year. And I want to get to that after I give a shout out to our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing. Our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing are going to help you out if you need any type of roof, whether your roof's just old, whether you're building a new home or business, or whether you've been hit by hail, which has just been nasty in Colorado over these past few months. They are going to hook you up with a hail-resistant roof as well, and they're going to upgrade you for that for free And of course, hail season is still here. So if hail hits you in the future, make sure to give our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing a call. Also, they have quality materials, decades of experience, quick response time. They're Colorado's best estimators and contractors, huge DNVR supporters, and they've got free no obligation roof and property inspections and free in-depth photo reports for all inspections. You can't always see how bad the damage is to your roof from the ground. So if you have any questions, give our friends over at Red Hawk Roofing a call over at 720-771-8921 and tell them the DNVR sent you. Or go to redhawkroofing.com or give them a call at 720-771-8921. Tell them that DNVR sent you.
Also,
What were you laughing at?
I mean, it was really tough to see roof damage from the ground.
They're right on that.
Yeah, that is absolutely true.
It's not if you're under the roof and it's leaking.
That's a good
True.
point. Yeah. Then
True.
you've got real issues with your roof.
Wow, that real issues. You may not have heard, but Colorado is no longer the healthiest state in the United States. It's it's sad. I feel like that's what we're supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like climbing mountains or skiing down mountains, a lot of stuff with the mountains. But UC Health is launching their Ready, Set, Co challenge statewide to try to help all Coloradans be their healthiest selves and ideally get Colorado back to its rightful place as the healthiest state. And they've brought in some big time help. Coach Prime wants to help you and other Coloradans be your healthiest selves. He's serving as the Chief Motivation Officer of UC Health's Ready, Set, Co challenge. We've seen him motivate people. He loves to, he's actually been motivating those North Dakota State Bison, and he's not even on their team, but he'll still motivate them. Coach Prime, expert motivator, and as he says, it's all about balance in the belly, which means you don't have to go on some crazy strict diet. Just daily choices will do the trick. If you want to join UC Health's Ready, Set, Co challenge, click the link in the show notes below, or you can go to uchealth.org/Ready, Set, Co.
Boom. UC Health, Ready, Set, Co. Henry, if Zach Wilson goes out and balls out this weekend, where we probably don't expect Bo Nix to play, so we expect Zach Wilson to get about a half of football. If he goes out there and balls out again, and he has 2 preseason games where he's balling out, could that have teams interested in trading for him?
Potentially.
I think so.
Yeah. I doubt it. I'll start there. I think that there's a real chance he's a waiver claim type of guy just because he's obviously really talented. The talent shows through sometimes. You've seen this with quarterbacks before. Ryan Tannehill has his resurgence. Like, there are some examples. Like, the odds of him being a Hall of Fame or Pro Bowl type quarterback are probably pretty slim, but him being a functional starter wouldn't be all that crazy. People forget he's only 24. He's the same age as Bo Nix.
Yeah, just
like
a couple months older.
Different paths. I mean, kind of inverted. You have Zach Wilson, incredible at BYU, and then kind of drops off with the Jets. You have Bo Nix, kind of rough start at Auburn, and he's trending up after Oregon. And, I mean, he's also looked better in these first 2 games. They're obviously not the same value. But there's a real chance that I think that Zach gets into a better situation, plays better, and I think other teams will think that. In terms of a trade, like if somebody offers you a 6th-round pick, you should probably just take it. Like, I don't... Because, you look at Jarrett Stidham. Jarrett Stidham's contract that he's on, 2 years, $10 million. If Zach Wilson gets that after the season, that's worth a 6th-round comp pick. Mm-hmm. And you'd have to have more outgoing free agents than incoming free agents to actually get that pick. And I think just given where the Broncos stand right now, that probably is unlikely. So I think that if you get really anything, you should probably take it. He's in that weird spot where if you can get something for him now, take it. But he's not worth losing for nothing.
Do you... I totally agree with that, Henry. And because what it boils down to me is, do you feel comfortable enough with Bo Nix that you need a long shot backup plan for him for the long term?
I mean, honestly, probably not. But I just...
Exactly. Exactly. That's why if you're able to get something in return for Zach, I agree with you. You flip a less than a 7th-round pick is what you traded for him. You flip that for a 6th-round pick, you do that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if on Monday the Broncos are able to trade Zach Wilson after he goes out in the second half against the Cardinals, backups, and balls out. And a team says, man, a team that has, I don't know, an okay quarterback, but wants a prospect, they go out and say, you know what? We believe in Sean Payton. We believe that he has already turned Zach Wilson around and that the Jets were just that bad of a place to go. And they might even look at Bo Nix and say, wait, Bo Nix is 24, and he's viewed as a rookie right now that's ascending. Well, let's go get Zach Wilson, who's 24, with more talent than Bo Nix, and see if we can continue his development. So, Henry, I agree with you. And I don't think the Broncos will get much for Zach Wilson, but I also agree if they're not able to trade him, you keep him. Because this is the most important position in sports. And if you don't know that you absolutely have that guy, or even if you have that guy's backup, then you need to continue to invest in the quarterback position time and time again. And that's why I don't mind this trade, especially after they made the trade. They still drafted a quarterback in the first round. I think this is exactly what is going to happen. They will keep 3 quarterbacks if they're not able to trade Zach, because you mentioned it, Henry. Who's going to get cut if they do keep 3 quarterbacks and they keep Zach Wilson? Who would that be? Give us an idea on who the 53rd man of the roster is.
Thomas Incoom would be on that list. Like, the running backs are just weird. You'd probably just leave that outside. Like, Lil Jordan Humphrey, he's probably out regardless. Jonas Griffith, right? That he's probably on the team. That's too much of a hot take. Like, Traymon Smith. Devin Key's probably safe at this point. Elijah Garcia would be pretty close.
Elijah Garcia is a really good one.
Yeah.
Now, would you rather have a talented young defensive lineman that's probably not going to see the field, probably not going to dress in any game this year outside of injuries? Or would you rather have the number 2 overall quarterback that has showed promise in his development?
See, I think Elijah Garcia would dress, but I think you can give him to the practice squad and you can just dress him from there.
Hank, you're not helping my point. You say the number 2 quarterback. That was supposed to be a toss-up, and you swung and missed.
You take Zach Wilson, but you keep Elijah Garcia too because he's probably not getting claimed.
Would Zach Wilson get claimed?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think somebody would take him.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So there it is. You keep all 3 quarterbacks. The Broncos should keep all 3 quarterbacks. I think they will keep all 3 quarterbacks unless there is a trade for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if otherwise, he's just more valuable.
Could he trade him to the Falcons? I hear they love quarterbacks.
That's a good point. Trade for the Falcons. I heard they're trying to get every single quarterback in the NFL on their roster. Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. Maybe they also trade for Bo Nix and Zach Wilson. Who knows? Maybe they just try to have 53 quarterbacks on their team.
I don't think anybody's going to offer anything for any of them. Like, I just don't know who that would be.
What team it would be?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Because
Maybe it's the Jags. Maybe they just want every quarterback that has not worked out on their original team that was a first-round
Mac
pick.
Jones looks nice. Have you watched him at all?
He looks awesome. Let's keep that going. Max Jones
really
looks
awesome.
nice. I love hearing that. Okay, Henry, so let's kind of look at the back of the roster, where things stand right now, entering the 3rd preseason game, which is a game for these players on the back of the roster that are trying to make that final push to make the team right now. Henry, tell me, where do things stand? Because you are the back of the roster expert. Back of the roster, Hank.
Yes. I'm just pulling up the last one I did. So the last one I did was a little more than 2 weeks ago. Oh, wow, it's tough. Like, I had Zach Wilson out, but he's probably back in. Samaje Perine's probably out at this point. Like,
the running back position very well could be a spot where you cut someone in order to keep 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Samaje, he might be an important player. Like, I think that you could see him go to the practice squad and still get dressed if they're able to get him to come back to the practice squad. I think Tyler Beatty, who probably never had a chance to make this team, has been their best running back in these preseason games. Like, I don't even know that it's all that close.
2 touchdowns, 2 games.
Yeah, he had the 27-yard run, got called back for a holding, but like you could probably just get him to the practice squad. He plays more like Samaje does than any of the other running backs.
Could you get into the practice squad with what he's done in the preseason?
I think so. But he's another tough one where he kind of feels like he's just he's over the hill. Like he kind of had his chance before. You know, I think he was a 5th round pick, maybe 6th round pick for the Ravens in 2022. They get rid of him halfway through that season, comes to Denver, gets 2 touches. One of them's the 26-yard touchdown up the sideline, I think against the Bengals at the end of that season. Like I feel like he's run with every opportunity he's gotten, but he's still only 24. So you look at, Blake Watson is also 24. Like he is still a young running back. I think Javonte is 24.
It's wild.
It's really weird to see all those guys. I just don't think that you can give him the roster because you want to go with Jaleel so badly. But I also think that if you just watch those games, he's been the best one. And I think that he has a track record of running with every opportunity you've ever given him.
Literally.
Yes.
He's ran with it.
Yes, he has.
Right? Straight into the end zone.
Yep.
Henry, that's a really good one that maybe is on the bubble, could make that push. And I think right now, Tyler Beatty's making the roster over Samaje Perine. Except for the fact that when the Broncos do 2-minute drives in practice now, it's Samaje on the field. And
that's the thing.
It's just like, it's clockwork. It's like, oh, Samaje's for sure not making this team until it comes to the 2-minute drive. And then it's like, that's the guy that Sean trusts. And the 2-minute drives are the most important drives in football. And so that's the only tough thing.
Yeah.
But I think they trust in Javonte enough. I think they trust in Jaleel enough. I think they like Estime enough where you can make that gamble by having a young guy or an unproven guy make the team over Samaje.
The tough part is that other than Beatty, every other running back on the roster, when you say like he could take Samaje's role there, I can think of a specific play in this preseason where he was given the opportunity and didn't take advantage. You know, for Javonte Williams, he has this option route out of the backfield in the first preseason game. Tries to break in. No separation, ball's incomplete because a linebacker is able to stick right with him. That's a play Samaje makes. Audric Estime, there was the 3rd and 1 this week before they tried the 4th and 1, then had to punt because of the false start, where he decides that he's going to continue the wheel route up the sideline, where he's got this little pick where the linebacker gets stuck on the receiver, and he just has all this space right here at the sticks, and he has the easy first down. Jarrett Stidham, it looks like he throws the ball behind him, but he's throwing it to where he should be sitting instead of sprinting upfield. Samaje makes that play. Julian McLaughlin, first preseason game, just gets wrecked in pass protection. And Samaje does that.
Yeah.
And so it's just so hard to actually get rid of the guy who does all those things. But at the same time, you want to give those other backs opportunities, I guess. It just feels like at some point during the season, I think if you cut Samaje Perine, you lose games because of it.
Wow.
But I still just don't know. Like, are you willing to lose Audric? Are you willing to lose Jaleel? Like, I just don't know.
You're not going to lose either of those guys. You would keep them and Samaje. But Henry, it's a really good point that other guys have missed out on opportunities to show they can be Samaje Perine and fill that role. You know who else has missed out on that opportunity in preseason to show that? Samaje himself.
Yeah, true.
Dropping the ball out of the backfield. He's supposed to be the one with the best hands. So I think your point is very fair and right. But I also think that Samaje has hurt himself just as much.
Yeah, there's just... I know exactly what he is. And even if he drops a ball that, like, I can't be concerned about Samaje Perine when he has the track record he has. It's almost like if Tim Patrick dropped a pass, you'd be like, I'm not worried about Tim Patrick's hands. Like, there just isn't a world in which, until I see that as a problem in the regular season, where I'm going to be worried about Phil. Or like back in the day, if Phil Lindsay fumbled in the preseason, you'd be like, he never fumbles. Like, I'm not worried about this.
You know why I'm not worried about Tim Patrick's hands?
Huh.
Because he hasn't dropped the ball and thrown it in the air for another defender to catch. Okay, so you mentioned the wide receivers. Let's talk about them, because yesterday we talked about trending up, trending down, and we talked about guys that are all going to make this team. What about the guys very much on the bubble, Henry?
Yep.
Where do things stand?
Well, I mean, you're kind of just stuck for Sutton, Mims, Reynolds, Patrick, Franklin, Vele, all locks at this point.
Is Franklin?
He's a 4th-round pick. You knew that you can't draft a 21-year-old and say, oh, wow, he doesn't look ready. We got to cut him. Like, what did you expect? The guy's 21 years old. I mean, you expected more than this, but I don't think you can actually pull the trigger.
Another reason, 4th-round pick is pretty much a lock to make the team, although Sean Payton has moved on from a position player who was a 4th-round pick his rookie season. It was a running back 10 years ago. They drafted New Orleans, and then they moved on from before the season even started. But Henry, he's not just a 4th-rounder. He's a 4th-rounder that you traded up for.
Yep.
So he's honestly the value of a late 3rd-rounder, and I agree with you. I do think he's going to make the team, but he should not make the team if it was based on what has happened and who has looked good this offseason. But I do think you're right for those reasons.
Yep. And so now you've got 6, and we've already talked about, I mean, you're keeping at least 4 running backs when you throw Burton in there. You're keeping, I don't think there's a case to be made to not keep 4 tight ends. I think the one who could go is Troutman, and I just don't think you can actually pull that trigger either.
Wait, so who are they? Dulcich,
Kroll, Troutman, Adkins.
You think Adkins is a lock?
He is. I mean, you watch him, and it's every single game. He makes every single block. And you can't say that about any of those other guys. Again, you crept Chris Manhertz last year. Nate Adkins is a much better blocker than Chris Manhertz is, and he's a better receiver. If you had Manhertz on the roster, you just have this upgrade now in Adkins, who was already on the roster also. They kept 2 of them because you can't trust a rookie. I think Adkins is a guy who's going to be here for quite a while just because you have him on a rookie contract. That's not a gap that you want to patch. He fills that role so perfectly. If anything, I think it's more likely they cut Michael Burton because you've seen Adkins be able to do the exact same thing at fullback. But I think it's more likely to keep both of those guys, move on from Samaje. Between tight ends and running backs, you've got 8 right there. You've got 6 already at receiver. You can't probably add to that, although that means you leave Lil Jordan Humphrey out, who I think has played better through the combination of training camp and the preseason games. He's been better than every receiver except for Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick. I think that if you were just watching all this, you would say Lil Jordan Humphrey's a starter, but I don't know how you get him on the roster. Bailey right there too. Right there too. And I think Bailey's injury, missing some time, is probably what gives, to me, Lil Jordan Humphrey. But he's been a monster over the middle of the field, 10 to 20 yards downfield throughout training camp. We saw him convert the 3rd and 10 over the middle with that deep dig, 20 yards this week. He is a much better player than he was last year, and he was an important player for them last year.
Man, I think it's going to be 3 tight ends because of what you said. The numbers are already getting
You get rid of Troutman?
Maybe. Now, the only thing with that is Sean's guy from New Orleans, but I wouldn't be surprised, especially if you do get the receiving ability of a Greg Dulcich and a Lucas Kroll, and you feel comfortable with Greg Dulcich's health going into the season, then it's Troutman or Adkins. And you make a really good point for Adkins. But
even Kroll.
But Adkins might fall through. I think Kroll...
I don't think so.
I think blockers fall through to practice squad a lot easier than pass catchers.
See, I disagree. I think those are tougher to find. I think the receiving tight ends are kind of a dime a dozen. You look around the league, and
that's why the Broncos have had so many great ones the past 10 years.
I mean, the thing is, the Broncos have kind of been the outlier. You go back to Noah Fant. Again, there's some receiving stuff there. There isn't the blocking. Guys like Chris Manhertz are actually kind of tough to find. That's why a Quinn Bailey can kind of do that stuff. I don't know. I think maybe even Lucas Kroll is kind of on the bubble just because he's been so bad as a blocker. You've just seen that when it works, it really works. But he doesn't have the technique. I mean, I think his first play in the game last week, he got pancaked. He got pancaked as a blocker trying to block somebody. And he isn't the receiver that Dulcich is. But I just think you see the tools, and you want to keep him and see if those tools develop because the tools are obvious. Because these pancake guys too. It's just that the rate of pancakes one way or the other is not where it needs to be. So the question there is also, is he more likely to get to the practice squad? Because you remember, I mean, he got waived by the Saints last year. I don't know. It's tough. I think you just wind up keeping all those guys, and you just say, Lil Jordan Humphrey, played all 17 games last year, but spent the first 4 weeks on the practice squad. You try to do it again this year, and if it doesn't work, I mean, it sucks. What is he? He just turned 26, so he is getting up. I mean, I guess that's Vele's age, but you see, it's a young player without many opportunities trending upward. It's tough to see somebody like that go, but again, you look at Tim Patrick, you look at Devon Vele, they're so big as receivers in the first place that I don't know. You're stuck there. Like, you're going to lose somebody from a skill position on offense that you don't want to lose.
And that's something that Sean Payton has pointed to. One of the things that he said, maybe even from the very first time that he got here, Henry, was what you don't want to do when you build your roster and when you cut your roster down. You don't want to say goodbye to someone, cut someone, and then have them go be productive on another team. He said that's like a worst nightmare when you build your roster. And then last week, he admitted the Broncos might have to do that with how deep they are. And you're kind of going through this like, we can see a running back get cut and then go have success somewhere else. We can see a tight end get cut and then go have success somewhere else. We can see that with the receiver, whereas a couple of years ago, we certainly weren't saying that. Now, offensive line might be a different story here.
Yeah. That guy's going to be Samaje. Like, I mean, Samaje is the reason they called Arrowhead Burrowhead. He was like scoring all the touchdowns. He had the great
stupid
games.
To do.
Yeah, but like, you could totally. Somebody said the Cowboys in the chat. Like, he's gonna go to a contender and he's gonna make some big plays. And he's 28 now though, so like at least it's not an up and coming guy who's rising. It's a guy who we see this coming. We accept that you're going to lose him. Yeah, offensive line, again, tough through training camp. You lose Quinn Bailey, so everybody kind of gets bumped up a spot in the rotation, which is, it's not ideal, obviously. That first preseason game, they were awesome. Like, you go through all these guys. I mean, Will Sherman played an incredible game. Frank Crum played an incredible game. DeMontre Jacobs was getting a bunch of attention. I mean, out there in space, both of those tosses making huge blocks. And so Alex Palshevsky, obviously. So you have, like, honestly, I think 12 or 13 guys who are making strong cases because of that preseason game. And then everything kind of went the other way this week. You know, Will Sherman gives up the safety in an otherwise really good game, but that'll get him to the practice squad. Frank Crum, who struggled during training camp, had the great game. He gave up a couple sacks this week. Gave up the pressure when Stidham got the ball tipped and it winds up going up the air. So he's got. So this is really thinning out. Throckmorton's your backup guard. Parrott is probably your backup tackle. They were working him at guard too. You just want to see if there's some versatility. We've seen that with Alex Palshevsky, who I think also makes the roster, playing at right tackle, playing at guard, and then Forsyth. So I think those are probably your 9. Mustapher hasn't really made a case. Gargiulo, Jacobs.
Could you trim it down to 8?
You'd choose between Parrott or Palshevsky.
Parrott, bye.
Parrott's gone?
Yeah, see ya.
I think so too. I mean, you could, but I mean, now all of a sudden Palshevsky better be good, because if Garrett Bowles gets injured, Mike McGlinchey gets injured, touch wood, but both of those guys have done that before. Then you're going to the practice squad to bring up the next guy.
Yeah.
And Palshevsky, I'd love to see him get the opportunity. We'd see what happens.
So then this is maybe where the question comes in. Would you rather have Nate Adkins or Pert?
Adkins.
Would you rather have Zach Wilson or Pert?
Probably
No,
Zach Wilson.
Just say Zach Wilson. Yes, that is the correct answer. There you go. And so I think, Henry, you keep depth where you're strong. You don't just play a numbers game like, we have to have 9 offensive linemen. We have to have 6 wide receivers. We saw it last year. The Broncos did not do that. They kept 4 wide receivers on their final 53-man roster. Now, did some gymnastics with the roster throughout the rest of the season, like you said, little Jordan Humphrey on the practice squad, then bringing him up for a little bit. But you play to the strength of your roster, and that's something Sean Payton has showed us that he's going to do, and I think that's going to be one thing again. And so I think if you keep 3 quarterbacks and you keep depth at running back, tight end, receiver, offensive line is where it gets hit. And I think that's the right call. Now, it's scary thinking about injuries and stuff, especially with how healthy the Broncos were on the offensive line last year. You come into this year thinking like, man, there's no way that's going to happen again, right? right? And you cross your fingers and you hope that Palashevsky can be good enough. That's a big blow that the Broncos don't have Quinn Bailey anymore, is because he was depth at tackle and at guard, and he would have made you feel so comfortable just keeping 8 guys, because he would have been able to fill 4 spots on the offensive line there. Okay, so
real quick with Parrott, the reason you keep him, he was a great prospect athletically, but born in Jamaica, like late bloomer, all that sort of stuff. Got into the 3rd round because of the talent. He is so big, so strong, such a great athlete. Just didn't translate with the Giants. Never really got many reps. With the growth we've seen from offensive linemen, I think in this system, I think with offensive line coach, all that, I could see him developing into a long-term left tackle replacement for Garrett Bowles. It's just, I get why you would say, like, we just don't have room for that experiment. We pick a Zach Wilson experiment instead.
Yep, I understand what you're saying there. Edward says, Zach, you should be a consultant for the Broncos. Cuts, you can hire Hank. Okay, I'm down.
Wow.
Let's let the Broncos know about that. Thank you, Edward. Don't know if you're trolling or being serious, but appreciate you commenting. Oh, well, I appreciate you, Edward. He's being serious. I appreciate everyone tuning in to the Toyota Lounge, and let's actually hit some super chats. Speaking of the people rocking and rolling with us today, first super chat is coming in from our friend Jordan. Actually, 3 from Jordan. Thank you, Jordan. He says, Bo Nix was 23 of 30, 76.7% completion, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 drives, 6 scores, 30 points. Zach Wilson in the preseason was 12 of 19, 146 yards, 63.2% completion, 1 touchdowns, no picks, 9 drives, 4 scores, 24 points, 3 touchdowns, 1 field goal drive. Yeah, I mean, not bad from Zach Wilson either. He goes on and says Jarrett Stidham was 11 for 18 for 61.1% completion, 102 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 6 drives, 1 score, 7 points. Rushing touchdown was on an extremely short field. I feel like Jordan's a little slanted against Jarrett Stidham in this case here, and Jordan rounds us out by saying Wilson 4 drives with third teamers is more impressive than Stidham 1 score on 6 drives with first and second team. Wilson's been screwed over by teammates as much as Jarrett Stidham, and that's what I was going to point to was, man, Jarrett Stidham's teammates have not helped him. Literally multiple penalties by offensive players in that first game that took them out of scoring range. Then, of course, the interception hit Samaje Perine right in the hands and bounced in the air. His other interception was, I want to say, a fluke, tipped at the line of scrimmage. Now, I don't want to be just giving Jarrett Stidham all the excuses in the world, but those, to me, all feel like very fair things as well. And I totally see what you're saying, Jordan. You make a good point about how Zach Wilson has outperformed Stidham. In terms of stats, there's no doubt about it. In the preseason, Zach Wilson has way outperformed Jarrett Stidham. But what I'm telling you is behind the scenes, what we've seen at practice, it hasn't even been really a competition between those two.
Until the last couple weeks.
Yeah, but even when it comes down to it, okay, Sean's about to show us who the second string quarterback is. It's always Jarrett Stidham. It's always Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, he was still competing for the starting job, though. You can't have him rotating with the threes and Bo not.
But that's kind of my point, though. If one guy's competing for the starting job,
Definitely.
that shows that he's number 2 on the depth chart when you take that third guy out of the mix.
Yeah, but you can be... Yeah, I mean, there's something there. I would say the stats for Zach Wilson, and it's not all about the stats. Again, we talked about a couple of those throws, but you could just keep going. Last week, there was a play, there was that ineligible man downfield because it's an RPO and it's a curl, and Zach Wilson just holds the ball too long. You can't do that. You're getting a penalty. The rule on an RPO is you got to get the ball out quick, otherwise it's a penalty. And you just see all these little things. And I think the week before, Zach Wilson was awesome. This week, though, he was really, really, really bad. And I think by the stats he still had, let's see if I can pull it up. I think Jarrett Stidham had a 40 passer rating. Yeah, 41.9. Zach Wilson, 89.6. And you watch what Zach Wilson did. Terrible. It really was terrible. The week before was awesome, though, and the talent's there, but it was terrible this week.
Man, Jarrett Stidham just put that shoulder down and chucked some guys going in
he
to
hit
the
his
end
throws.
zone. Jarrett
Stidham would have had a 19-yard pass to Lucas Kroll, but there was a chop block, so that one gets called back. It's over
true.
and over and over. There's all these examples that just this week really skewed those two apart when they shouldn't have.
Great conversation on today's show. That's going to do it for right now. Don't be surprised there's an emergency show later today on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Hit us with a thumbs up on the way out. Subscribe, turn on alerts so you know when we're doing the emergency show going live. If we don't see you later today, we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thank you for rocking and rolling with us. One more thumbs up on the way out. We appreciate you all. Maybe we'll talk to you later today.
We all silly like the mayor.